Good afternoon, and on behalf of the University of Notre Dame's Alumni Association, I'd like to welcome you to today's On the Sidelines lecture. My name is Mandy Kanukin, and I serve as the Academic Program Director for the Alumni Association, and I'm delighted to share today's program with you. In its fifth year, the On the Sidelines lecture series is one example of the Alumni Association's academic programs that are designed to foster the spirit of lifelong learning for our alumni and our friends. Through our academic programs, our aim is to put a spotlight on the amazing work Notre Dame faculty do here on campus and throughout the world, and to share that work with our alumni and our friends. Is there any chance that anyone here has ever watched a Notre Dame football game on their TV? Yeah? Okay. So if that's the case, you're probably familiar with the What Would You Fight For series. These 2-minute spots that are aired during halftime of home football games feature the best of Notre Dame, what we fight for and why. Today's lecture, Fighting for the Moon and Beyond, will give you a behind-the-scenes look at this series. And there's no better person to give you this backstage access than the very woman who produces the series, Beth Rizzoli. Beth is a double-domer who directs the video and photography team for Notre Dame Marketing Communications. After graduating from Notre Dame, she became the communications director for the Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend before moving to New Orleans. There, she worked as producer-writer on various TV programs that have taken her around the United States and Europe, and as the host of 2 weekly shows. Beth is the producer of the What Would You Fight For series, and one of her favorite parts of producing video at Notre Dame is meeting the faculty who have taught her everything from anthropology to zebrafish to the moon. Before Beth takes the stage, here's one example of a fighting for spot called Fighting for Opportunity. Enjoy.
When people come to Nepal, they see breathtaking beauty. They see abject poverty. What I saw was an opportunity.
Since 2006, Notre Dame industrial design professor Marie Conrado has brought students to Nepal to collaborate with local artisans in the design and development of fair trade products.
In Nepal, you have this incredible tradition of talented and hardworking artisans, and yet for years, jobs were disappearing. The problem was simply that they lacked an understanding of what people in the rest of the world wanted to buy. And that's where we've been able to step in and help. We've opened up markets all over the world. In one artisan community, we've seen jobs and sales triple. But creating jobs and opportunities is just half the story. Our students are taking the insights gained from that immersion and translating them into products that help people's lives.
Social design products developed by the Notre Dame in Nepal program include an umbilical cord cutter that requires sterilization for reuse, thereby minimizing birth-related deaths, as well as a $3 washing machine that preserves clean water sources and improves the quality of life for women.
Coming here has given me more sense of purpose, and now I'll try to look at my design beyond the actual physical appearance of it and try to think of some way it could impact somebody else.
Our work is based on the belief that one design can transform an industry, a village, a life.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting to create opportunity.
We are the Fighting Irish.
Please help me in welcoming Beth Rizzoli.
Well, thank you all for coming today. It's great to see you. It's always great to have alumni and friends come back and visit campus. So the first thing I need to correct a little bit on Mandy is that I have a lot of help in producing these. It is certainly not a single effort on my part. And we have partners, and I'll go into a little bit, but I have a team from NBC who works really closely with me and a few folks here on campus that help a lot. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, and it is certainly not one person pulling this all together. But I'm glad to hear many of you watch our games on TV. The What Would You Fight For campaign is in its 10th season this year, so happy anniversary to us. This began in 2007, and we're very proud of this campaign. It is a partnership between NBC and Notre Dame and has actually become written into our contract with them. They donate this 2 minutes of airtime. It is not sold to us, and no one else can really purchase 2 minutes of airtime during a sporting event. So we're really the envy of many commercial organizations and universities. So we're really fortunate to have that great relationship there. NBC views these 2-minute stories as part of the entire program. In their mind, this 3.5 hours is their show, their football show, and they care very much about their audience. So they have quite a say in the content of these stories and the topics that we do choose. So we all sit down, and there have been times I wanted to do a few stories, and they did not. So but we have a great working relationship, and it really has been very positive. And we hope that continues for many years. The project, we produce 6 stories a year. We usually air one from the previous season just because it takes so much time and effort to produce a story that we like to balance out the content between disciplines, science, engineering, law, arts and letters. So often we'll take that 7th story as one that aired the previous season. It was really a strong one to help balance out our offering that season. And I work on these year round. I'm considering subjects for next year right now. We're still in the final production of this season, but yet we're already considering the stories. There's quite a list of criteria that we would like these topics to meet. And so they may be the best of, as Mandy said, the best of what Notre Dame does. That's only a fraction of it. They are the best of what Notre Dame does, but they also happen to be stories that are conducive to telling visually. There's a lot of great things that go on at Notre Dame, lots of great things, but not all of them will work in a visual format such as television. So you can see any story anytime online. We have a whole site. It's fightingfor.nd.edu. If you go to it, they'll have the current story up in the cover there, and the whole season will be on the left. If the screen went down farther, you would see previous years tab, and you can click on that. You can see all of them. And there's well over 60 there. You can also see them on our YouTube channel. We have a playlist, so they're readily available, and actually the university uses them to a great extent in many other ways. Clive's here today, you'll hear more from him, but the professors have used them to get grants. We've actually secured a lot of funding for research because the stories just encapsulate the importance of the work, and people can relate to them, and they see why it's important. So, Mandy had asked me today to tell you a little bit about the stories behind the stories, and we're lucky in that we have a big viewership. Believe it or not, NBC, our ratings are over 4 million, depending on how the season's going. But on average, that's about how many eyeballs see these every week. And then they are on Facebook. I have the young woman who handles all the social media and pushing them out every week. I think, Clive, your story has over 10,000 views on Facebook alone. So yeah, we get a lot of traction, and we're really lucky with that. Again, a team effort here. So the guiding principles behind our stories are they are to showcase the academic and research endeavors of our faculty and our students. That is the primary purpose of these stories. Now, woven in there is the importance of the impact on a society or on a problem in the world somehow. We want to show stories of transformation. And so, again, we have tremendous research going on here, and it may have been a decade still at the bench level. And it's not forward enough into the world for us to be able to tell that well on screen. So again, we're looking for stories where we can show Notre Dame's impact as a force for good out in the world. We don't want to tell you how great Notre Dame is. We want to show you. We want to show you the great things we're doing. We often have outsiders in these stories who are non-Notre Dame people talking about how valuable this work is, because, again, people don't want to hear us talking about how great our work is. We bring in outsiders to help validate that. So a lot of people think, and it's often made out in the media, that production and video, working in the video world and film world is really glamorous. And I can assure you, it is not nearly as glamorous as you might think. And so behind all these 60+ stories, there is another story. I can assure you that. But Mandy wanted me to share some of the most memorable moments. So I came up with a few that my team talks about over and over, and remember when, and this and that, and thought I'd share a little bit with you today. Now, in full disclosure, I have to tell you, I don't go on the international shoots. It's just too expensive. So we do have a freelance crew that we work with on a regular basis, director of photography, cameraman, audio specialist, director for that particular story, and often a field producer or grip. And so all these stories I am telling you are coming secondhand, but I have heard them so many times, I feel like I can tell them with a good degree of accuracy. So the story, the Fighting for Opportunity video that we started with is just a beautiful story in this community that our professor, whoops, did I hit something? No? Anyway, we went to Nepal because, again, we want to take you and show you the impact of this work. It means a lot more when we just don't tell you about it. So we fly our whole crew down there at great expense, and you'll recognize this scene. This is a screen grab, actually, from the story. Doesn't that look lovely? Just so bucolic and pastoral and peaceful. Well, the Nepal trip is probably, when I say production is far less glamorous than people think, this is probably the strongest testament to that, this trip. So our crew is in this field, they're shooting the scenes, they're there for a few hours, it's long, it's hot, it's muddy, and very hot. They come out at the end of this, and one of them happens to look down, and all their legs are covered with leeches. So they're picking off these bloody leeches, and I thought, oh my goodness, you know what next? But anyway, the community was beautiful. They were very appreciative of and welcoming. I mean, any of you who have traveled internationally, this is often the case. And they wanted to have a big feast for our team there. And our students. Our students are there too, remember. So long day. They're exhausted. They gather them all together, and they're about to have the meal. And apparently this is a great tradition. I don't know if any of you have been to Nepal, but they proceeded to drag out a goat on a rope and slit the throat of the goat. And then they drained the blood from the goat's head into these various pots and cooked it and passed it around. So that was the welcoming drink. And I shouldn't laugh about this. Apparently, one of our students was a vegan, and I'm not sure she's ever recovered from this trip. And so, you know, they butchered the goat, they cooked the goat, and then as part of the meal, what was described to me as like a rusty gasoline can, and with some sort of homemade alcohol in it. So that accompanied the meal. They were pouring from this rusty gas can, and everybody enjoying that. And but they were giving all that they had, so it was beautiful. But it was quite an adventure. Needless to say, long day. All you want to do is just crash. You just want to get a good night's sleep. And so when they showed them to the quarters, it was the barn. And okay, that was fine. We did have, our director on that particular story was a female, and so she went to the female quarters and the males went to the males, and her cot was literally by the stall of the water buffalo. So they're domesticated there. So these are some of our funniest Nepal stories. It was certainly most memorable, and we all laugh now, but you know, when you're watching these stories, you can just imagine, I guess, some of the things that we're dealing with, and and coming back and sharing. It's great. Another trip was to Egypt. Now, here's the caveat here. In 2012, we did a story fighting for global justice. I don't know if any of you remember the climate in Egypt back then. It was pretty tenuous. Well, we will not send anyone to an area that is not safe. We have very, very strict guidelines on that. NBC has very strict guidelines for their team members, and that's the last thing. We want to have anybody in jeopardy. So we had this wonderful story. We had a student, a graduate student. She was actually in a law program for civil and human rights. She was from Egypt, and she was about to graduate. She was going to take this knowledge and this degree back to Egypt, and she wanted to work for, to impact her community and make change and have a positive influence. So we wanted to tell the story. Well, we couldn't get to Egypt. We thought, well, what are we going to do? I'm not sure to work. Well, one of our directors who works with us frequently says, I got a buddy who shoots documentaries in Egypt. I'm going to see if I can get in touch with him. So we contact the buddy. We said, do you think we could connect you with Rayam? Rayam's our student. Could you just kind of clandestinely follow her around for a day and we'll shoot? Because, you could have anything confiscated. It was very tenuous, after the Arab Spring and things. He said, oh, yeah, I do this all the time. So here he is. You can see this is what he's shooting. So our buddy comes through for us. Here he is behind Rayam. All the police there. She's showing up at a protest, and she's discussing quite at length at the protest, and there's our cameraman right behind her. So it comes time for him to come back to the United States. Back then we were shooting on tape still. Now everything is pretty much on digital. It's on little cards. So he decided to hide all his tapes in his coat, thinking, this is our best shot. And he goes to come through customs, and again, might not even have a problem. Good chance he's not going to have a problem. If he does, he could always turn them over, and we're out of luck, and that's the end of it. Or he could really have a problem. He was not concerned at all. And so he got stopped, took off his coat. No one checked his pockets, smuggling all his tapes in, proceeded to get all his clothes back, got on the plane, came home, and delivered us the footage. So that's our story of Egypt. It wasn't quite this dangerous as far as getting the tapes out. We also did a story just a year or so ago in the Kakuma refugee camp where we couldn't send a crew. It just wasn't safe to send them down there. But again, we had contacted a fellow cameraman down there we knew well enough. We're pretty particular about the style in which we shoot. We have a certain level of standards that we'd like to adhere to. And so we did have this one person we really trusted, and so he did our shooting for us down in Kakuma with Raul, our professor in that story. This next story was fighting to stop tuberculosis. That's Professor Marv Miller there. He's quite esteemed in his field. So the drama around this story has nothing to do with the tuberculosis, etc. But it was the week before, this was to air at the Pittsburgh game, November 3rd, 2012. Well, our post house, the post-production house that does our final editing, happens to be in New York City. So Sandy hits, I think it was October 29th. And we're right in the middle of this. It's not finished. It's not even close. So, of course, we're trying to come up with a plan B. And we had 2 stories left to do that season, neither of which we really felt we could hold to the next season, which sometimes we could do because we can always pull one from the year before if we have to and re-air it, which, we don't want to do, but it's a hurricane. So I lived through Hurricane Katrina. I know what they were dealing with in New York, and I thought, we don't have a snowball chance in hell of getting this done. But our fantastic editor, Pete, New Wave Entertainment in New York, decides he's going to try to get into his building. So he gets downtown, gets through all the barriers, gets through the cordoned off areas, gets to his building, gets a security officer who has keys to the building. No power in the whole building, not a lick of power in the whole building. Goes up to his office on the 11th floor via stairwell. Complete darkness, no lights. He's getting up the stairwell. Gets to his office, electronic locks, so they can't get in. So he and the security guard literally kick the door down, get into their office. He's on a mission now. He's on a mission. They're going to make this happen. You know, it was not the end of the world if it didn't, but you know when you get on a mission. So kicks the door down, flashlights, getting in, gathers up all the field tapes, gathers up his entire desktop editing system, CPU, everything, carts all of it. We did have a plan. NBC happened to have power down the street, Rockefeller Center. Lugs all of it back down the 11 flights in the dark, trying to bounce. He said he had a flashlight underneath his chin. I don't know how this guy did it. Anyway, lugs it all down, treks it across town, gets to NBC, gets up to our floor at NBC. Their system's not compatible with his system. But he's on a mission. So we spent hours and hours, reformatting everything. These guys know how long it takes to upload and change formats, et cetera. And so we had our plan in place for a plan B, but we have to have our 2-minute spot delivered to NBC Master Control, at the latest Friday, at a certain time, to make sure it's slated correctly and it's going to air at the appropriate time. So as of noon Friday, before that Pittsburgh game, we had no idea what spot we were going to air. We still didn't know. And he came through, finished it, got everything done, went up. Nobody else knew the difference. Nobody did, but we did. So those are some of the minor heroics involved in getting these, life-changing stories on the air. One more quick story I'll tell you. A lot of these do happen to happen internationally. So we were in Nicaragua. Again, I'm not there, just full disclosure, repeating this from my colleagues that we're very closely with. So we did a story, Fighting to Build Bridges. I'm not sure anyone, if you remember that. We have a group of engineering students. They're just terrific. And they identify areas in Central America in particular that they're dry riverbeds, but they flood in the rainy season. And the children can't go to school. They'll drown if they cross, and there are drownings, and to get to medical care. So they identify these places, and the engineers design the bridges, and then they go down with the community and build them side by side so that it's, again, not coming in to solve all their problems, it's working with them to solve the problems. So we think this is a terrific story. We do all our legwork, get all our forms filled out, fly our crew down to Nicaragua. We have all the permissions. We fly with a lot of gear, lots of gear. This was customs. Now you can kind of sense that woman is not really happy with us. This is one of my colleagues, this is his cell phone. He just snapped the picture because the situation was getting so out of hand. She wasn't happy that we had all this gear. It didn't matter that we had the right paperwork. These guys are arguing till they're blue in the face until she said, no, you're not taking the gear into the country, and threatened to throw them in jail if they pushed any harder. So you know when you're beat. And here we've gone to this expense to fly our crew down. All our students are down there. They've been building this bridge for a month. We're all ready. Our professor's down there. What are we going to do? So the guy on the right, Jason, happened to have just put a DSLR camera, just an extra one, he has 1 million cameras, in his carry-on bag. So we had one DSLR camera, which you can shoot video with. Can't really capture any audio at all. We had interviews to do, et cetera. So the first thing they decide is, okay, if you learn nothing else when you work in this field, it's to be resourceful. Like, all right, maybe we can go buy some gear somewhere. Maybe we can rent some gear somewhere. They go to the mall. They must have been in Managua, I don't know. Find a really upscale mall. They said, man, you'd be surprised, this really upscale mall. And of course, there's nothing. There's not, the stores or the online vendors that we have available to us. And they're really feeling dejected, not quite sure what we're going to do. Well, they happen to see a fashion show going on in this mall. And who happens to be there but a cameraman with all this video gear shooting this fashion show. So they kind of look at each other. They approach the cameraman and say, would you rent us your gear for 2 days? He said, no, but you can hire me. and I'll come with you and you can use my gear. So we get this guy. He's got the same camera we use for our, what are the odds of that? The same exact camera we use for most all of our stories. They all go out to the remote village. We have great camera gear, we have lights, etc. We still had no audio gear. He wasn't capturing audio that day. But we never do this. On this particular story, I had sent down a little audio recorder with the students. And I said, I want you to sort of record your comments and your reflections as you're building, over the month. It's a little tiny audio recorder. So I said, where's that audio recorder? They get the audio recorder, tape it to a broomstick. That becomes our boom mic. We got the guy's gear, shot a beautiful story. I wish I had time to show it to you, but you can see them all online. And we proceeded to finish the shoot, go back to the airport. They gave us all our gear right back, and home they flew. So that is it. Those are some of the behind-the-scenes stories. I can assure you, out of 60 plus, there were probably 60 stories. Yours was pretty drama-free, Clive, I have to say. Yours was a little bit there, but pretty drama-free. Yeah, he will share next his experiences and his project he's working on. Clive's story aired last week. If you did watch the game, you would have seen his piece. So I'm happy to answer questions when we're done. I'll be around, but I'm going to turn it over to him at this point.
And just as I'm going to go ahead and show Clive's spot so you can see what it is that Beth was talking about.
I was 8 years old when Apollo 11 launched into space. I can still remember my father waking me at 4 in the morning to watch the first man walk on the moon.
One small step for man, one giant leap for man.
Seeing those images for the first time from another world was inspiring.
We've got a beautiful picture, Neil.
Over the next 3 years, the Apollo missions revealed so much about our moon. But when the last manned mission left in 1972, so many mysteries remained. Mysteries that we are still trying to uncover today.
Clive Neal is a professor of planetary geology at Notre Dame and the chair of NASA's Lunar Exploration Analysis Group. His research focuses on understanding the evolution and composition of the moon.
It took 36 years from when we last left the moon to discover there was water there. We simply didn't have the technology to be able to detect it. But once we did, it opened up a whole realm of possibilities.
Clive Neal is one of these rare people that we saw a few of during Apollo, and we have seen a few since. His work has advanced our knowledge in remarkable ways that not only relate to the use of energy here on Earth, but also to the exploration of the rest of the solar system.
Studying under Professor Neal has truly been a life-changing experience. I've had the opportunity to literally touch the moon, and the research I've done has given me the confidence to pursue my dream of someday working for NASA.
The Apollo landings inspired a generation of scientists and explorers. And my hope is that our research will inspire the next generation to push further into the unknown.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting to explore the moon.
We are the Fighting Irish.
Please help me in welcoming Clive Neal.
Thank you very much, and it's quite humbling to see that again because I look at rocks. That's what I do. I just look at rocks. I also have a few people to thank. We have Carl Kronberger and Dave Burney and Mike Torsivia. Is that correct? Have I got it right now? Yeah. These are my long-suffering graduate students that do all the work, they do great work as well. I was told to come up here and talk about my research, but I figured that I would have a lot of people snoozing before that. So I'm turning it around a little bit, and something that Harrison Schmitt said on there about how can we use the moon? What did we learn about the moon? And you can see up here on the screen with regards to these wonderful new images. The US has a mission that is still orbiting the moon today. It's been up there since 2009 called Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. and it has this high-resolution camera that we just never had before. The old Hasselblads they had on the surface, and some of the film cameras from the lunar orbiter days. But these give centimeter per pixel resolution, and they've mapped now the entire moon, and you've got the near side and the far side, and you can see the dichotomy between the two surfaces. This side always faces us. You go out tonight, hopefully it's a nice clear night, you can look up and you can see it. You can see all the places where we landed. And yeah, we'll get onto that in a little bit, but this is the moon, our moon, that has informed us because we've been there and we have samples from it on a number of different things. If you look at it in terms of size, the moon is our cornerstone in understanding how planets form and evolve. If we look at the moon down here, we've got Mars and we've got Earth. Now, President Obama has a Frontiers conference going on right now in Pittsburgh. I didn't get an invite. That's okay, because I want to go here, but then I want to go here. But I don't want to repeat how we explored the moon. The reason for that is Apollo was brilliant. I was a little fella back in England, and my father, a factory worker, got me up and he told me, he said, "Son, this is history." An 8-year-old grumpy kid, "I don't want to get up, it's 3:30 in the morning, UK time." And he said, "Son, this is history, you need to watch this." Little did I know the prophetic words from my father would land me in America for a job I never applied for, to work on moon rocks, and then bring me to Notre Dame. It's funny how it works that way, but when we look at those rocks that came back from the moon, it is our cornerstone for understanding how this planet and this planet formed. Our planet is still active. We have earthquakes, we have volcanoes, but the moon is still, it's not quite dead yet. It's still got a bit of life left in it, but it has preserved the primordial processes that form planets. Mars has been active and is still active. We can see that by some of the landforms that have been photographed and explored by some of the Mars rovers, and we know it's been a very active planet. But looking back to 3.5, 4 billion years, this is where the moon comes into its own. Because if we look here, it's preserving the cratering record of the inner solar system. Late heavy bombardment has been proposed because of work done on the moon rocks. When did life begin on this planet? Well, if you're having the snot beaten out of you by all these asteroids coming in, it's not going to start then. So when did it end? And these are some of the questions that we're still exploring. But what I want to do is just sort of a recap here. You can see here, these are the Apollo missions that landed, the 12 people that have walked on the moon. I want to be around to see the 13th. Unfortunately, I'm too fat to be the 13th and now too old. You have over here these little white dots. This is Lunar 24, 20, and 16. These are the Soviet robotic sample return missions. They're the landing sites. We have, Johnson Space Center has some of those samples as part of a cooperation agreement with the Soviet Union. Sort of sounds weird. But they didn't, they brought back grams. Apollo brought back 382 kilograms. This is the beauty of a human spaceflight program, is that we now have samples. As I said in the video, it took 36 years analyzing those samples to figure out there was water and other volatiles in the moon. Now, why is that important? This is going to be a snoozer. I can hear he's talking about volatiles and rocks. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh, why did I come in here? Well, did you know about Apollo 18? Did you know about Apollo 19? Did you know about Apollo 20? Tricky Dicky canceled them. So you go to Marshall Space Flight Center, you go to Kennedy Space Flight Center, you go to Johnson. You've got Saturn V rockets sitting on their side. They put them in a building finally because they were rotting away nicely. But they were built, ready to go for the next 3 missions to the moon, and they didn't go. But we built Skylab, and we had Skylab, and we've not really been outside of Earth orbit since that time. So 17 was the last one Harrison Schmitt was part of that, the only scientist and the only geologist to walk on the moon. And he's been very, very gracious to me, and I have to acknowledge him. He's been very, very useful because I've worked on Apollo 17 rocks. And I can remember talking to him about this one particular sample. And he said, well, let me correct you on a few things. And he gave me the context. Where did I find that? Let me tell you, I didn't find it. I don't know where you read that, but you got it wrong. We picked it up over here, and this was the context it was in. And you just sort of sit there and you shut up, the jaw hits the floor, and you just listen. Because he's been to the moon. He's walked on the moon. So, I play this little video, if it does play. It doesn't look like it's embedded, though. That's not good. All right. It's not embedded. But anyway. Okay, never mind. Well, anyway. The video is basically saying, well, what was said when the Apollo 17, the last men on the moon, what was said? Is that we leave as we came, in peace for all mankind, and we hope to return in the not too distant future. Well, geologically speaking, we're not in the not too distant future right now, all right? But, 1972, that's 44 years ago, this December. 44 years ago since we went beyond low Earth orbit with humans. And I can hear the arguments, well, why would we want to do that? We've got enough problems down here. That costs money. We've got a lot of problems down here that we need to solve. We don't need to be sending humans into space. Well, what I want to do in this talk is to sort of argue with you on that bit, if you have that opinion, because we have a potential opportunity to advance technology, to create jobs. And what do we hear? We have unemployment rates. We're now a service country because we don't have any manufacturing base. We don't have any production. Well, we can change that because if we bring the moon into our economic sphere of influence, and it sounds very sci-fi now, but if we bring that into our economic influence, we have opportunity. There are the conspiracy theorists out there. Did we actually go to the moon? And I've got a wonderful video that I haven't loaded in this of the producer of the Fox documentary on the moon hoax. Following hassling Buzz Aldrin during a press conference he was giving, following him out of the room, down the street. And Buzz Aldrin saying, will you get away from me? And he says, you're a liar and you're a cheat. And that was it for Buzz because he had to do this. And gave him a right hook. And the producer sued Buzz Aldrin and lost. Yes. But if you look, we go back to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and its wonderful camera. This is the Apollo 17 site. From orbit, taken about 3 years ago. You see here's the lander. Here's the rover. Here's the shadow from the flag. They would have thought an old nylon flag would have been eaten up in that radiation environment, but apparently the flag is still there. Is there a song that says that? But we can see it from space. We have moon rocks that have compositions that you don't find on this planet. So yeah, we went there. And if you talk to Harrison Schmitt, yeah, he'll tell you he went there. Talk to Buzz Aldrin, he'll probably hit you if you tell him. But, so in 2004, we were going to go back to the moon. President Bush said we have a vision for space exploration and we're going to use the moon to go further. And I was a young guy in 2004. It was sad to say I was one of the younger lunar scientists at that time because the moon was a four-letter word to NASA and they were too busy doing other things. So we had to create a community and we started to ramp up, and I chaired the Lunar Exploration Analysis Group from 2005 to 2010, and we developed an integrated roadmap to not only explore the moon, but use the moon to go elsewhere, to go to Mars, to go to asteroids, send humanity out there. But it was also developed commercial on-ramps, bring in industry, bring in the private sector. Let's start leveraging this in a way that NASA can be the lead tenant, if you like. And then we would have these satellite service companies come in to generate resources, oxygen, water. We would be able to rocket fuel on the moon. We'd be able to do that. But then we had a presidential election. And President Obama came in and unfortunately, President Bush had this vision, couldn't get the budget increased. So we can't afford the vision. He was going to cancel the heavy launch vehicle, but without the heavy launch vehicle, he also proposed these manned mission to near-Earth objects, asteroids. All right, we're going to go to the Martian moons and eventually Mars. So by the 2030s, we're going to get to Mars. So part of his speech at Kennedy Space Center in 2010 was to abandon the moon, and again, we will complete a heavy launch vehicle, and we will increase NASA's budget by $6 billion over 5 years. That was 2010. So he predicted that we would be around Mars by the 2030s. Unfortunately, right now, if you send humans to Mars, you don't have to worry about bringing them back. They'll be dead by the time they get there. It takes so long to get there, and the radiation environment is non-trivial. Right? That's an understatement to say it's terrible. So it's going to kill you. In order to have a radiation protection, you need at least a meter-thick envelope of water around the capsule. Water's heavy. So to get out of this gravity well, you need a big rocket. We don't have a big enough rocket, so you need multiple launches. That costs a lot of money. So if we go to Mars by taking, as we did with Apollo, we take everything from this planet, we don't have the budget. So we bypass the moon. We've been there before. Buzz has been there, because Buzz was in the audience at this one. So this is the NASA budget from 2010 to 2016. All right? It's increased by $264 million. Okay? So we don't have a budget to achieve this vision either, because we're creating a vision for dates, and we're going to be there by 2025. Wrong way to do it. We haven't been there and done that, because here's the LROC image of the Apollo 11 site. If you transpose that to Washington Mall, we didn't even get to the gift shop. If you look at it in terms of transposing the landing sites on the continental US, well, we sort of just got into the Rockies, and then we explored quite a bit of the Midwest, or a little bit of the Midwest, but less than 5% of the lunar surface has been explored. So been there, done that? Okay, we've been there. We are still learning about the moon. But we can't even send our own astronauts to space station right now. Don't have a vehicle to do it. Cancel shuttle, so we pay the Russians to do it. Now there's a turn of events. Didn't we beat you? Yeah. Apparently not. So when this cartoon came out, it was quite poignant. 47 years since Apollo 11, but we can't do it now. However, robotically, unmanned missions, since Apollo, there have been quite a few missions to orbit the moon. It's given us global maps, a global insight, but you see, it's not just USA, Japan, Europe, India, China. China became the third nation to soft land successfully on the moon in December 2013. They are going to go bring samples back from the far side in 2017. They have plans. They have plans to go to Mars. When I was in Beijing, I asked them, what is your budget? They said, what do you mean? I said, well, how much do you get to do this? Oh, we just tell the central government what we need, and they give it to us. That's Apollo. But what we learned from Apollo was it wasn't sustainable. It got canceled. So now we have 3 tourist attractions and rather large rockets at these different sites. But what did we learn? Thanks to Jack Schmitt falling over at Shorty Crater and Taurus Littrow, he discovered the orange soil. If we look at the orange soil, we can see it here, and it's these volcanic glass beads. This gave us a hint that we had these fire fountain type events going on, as we see in Hawaii. Volatiles, first hint of volatiles, but we couldn't measure them. We didn't have the technology to measure those in these very small glass beads. It wasn't until 2008 that we found that the volatiles were present. And again, further studies showed that they were present at different landing sites. When we start to think about what do we need in order to sustain life off planet, water becomes important. You have a lot of solar power there. You can electrolyze it. You can get oxygen, put your hydrogen back in to create more water, and so on and so forth. So this became what can we do with this? So the USGS, through Lisa Gaddis, has created these maps now of all these different fire fountain deposits. These are now resources. They're very good for science, but these are now exploration resources that can be used. If we look at Grimaldi, we have these vents here, and if you can see these dark areas, these are the deposits, these fire fountain deposits. Here's Schrodinger Basin on the far side. There's 2 fire fountain deposits winking at us right there. They become resources if we want to sustain life. We've got these maps. And I put this titanium map up because titanium is important because it comes from the mineral ilmenite, which is a little sponge. It soaks up all sorts of goodies from the solar wind. We'll get onto that in a little bit. But we also know that we've got permanently shadowed regions at the polar region, in the poles, and these contain ice deposits. We see now the LCROSS mission that went up with LRO was to put an impactor into one of these permanently shadowed regions and then analyze the plume that came out. No end of volatiles in there. This is a resource, something that can be used to sustain life off planet without taking everything with us from this planet, which is the expensive part. However, if you go into some of these permanently shadowed regions, they are some of the coldest places in our solar system. Temperatures of about 25 Kelvin. If you put that in terms of degrees Celsius, it's, let's see if I can do the maths now, it's about minus 258 Celsius. 48 Celsius. I got there eventually. We look at the moon, it's no atmosphere. So meteorites come in and they impact. We have these big craters. We're still measuring and seeing new craters formed every year. But because of our titanium, our little sponges here, they can soak up solar wind protons. You give energy, you start to create water. And there's regolith that's come back from the moon, you heat it up in a vacuum, you watch water drip out the bottom of this material that doesn't contain water, but it contains the components for water. So we can live off the land. Water and oxygen can be mined pretty much anywhere on the moon. Now, should we go back to the moon? Well, this is the future right here. The moon contains a rather abundant supply of this thing called helium-3. Because of our atmosphere and magnetic field, we don't have that down here. There's not much of it at all. But helium-3 is the nirvana for the nuclear industry. Nuclear fusion. So when you fuse these together, you get helium-4 and 2 hydrogens. There is no toxic byproduct as you get from fission. All our nuclear waste is stored on site at nuclear power plants. Just up the street here, we've got our nuclear power plant that is supplementing our electricity. It's good, but what happens to the waste? So about 25 tons of helium-3 would power the United States for 1 year, given the theory behind this. Remember, fusion is still working on sustainable fusion. It's not there yet. So the perspective is a space shuttle payload that would fuel the US for 1 year. And that's about $75 billion worth of material. So from the samples we got back from Apollo, we can estimate there's greater than 1 million tons of helium-3 on the lunar surface. The Chinese are very interested in this. They are trying to map out the helium-3. They need energy. They're growing. They're bringing samples back. I wonder where they're going to bring samples back from. Probably from a helium-3 rich area, I would imagine. They're interested in it, and it's important. But right now, we're bypassing the moon. Jack Schmitt, or Harrison Schmitt, has written a book on this very issue. He works with the folks at the University of Wisconsin-Madison who are pursuing the fusion technology that is needed to make this a reality. And this book tells a lot about his experiences from Apollo 17 and the space program, but also about the applied aspects of what we brought back, what we can do with it. So the moon in itself is our gateway to the solar system. It's close. It is an environment that is very different from what we have down here. I mean, for example, we have lots of experience of what bodies do in microgravity, and we have lots of experience about what bodies do in 1G. We got Space Station, Skylab before that, Mir, and we got this planet. You go to Mars, you're 1/3 G. So microgravity, basically your skeleton's going to dissolve. Well, what are the measures that can be put in there that would stop that? What are the countermeasures? If we can solve that, then osteoporosis becomes a thing of the past. But what about 1/6G? Is it a linear degradation from 1 to micro? Or is there a sweet spot in the middle that would be useful? So instead, when we go to Mars, rather than have 0G or 1G, we want to keep them at 1G so they don't dissolve by the time they get there. Basically, what we want to do is, would 1/6G be enough? Well, we haven't been there long enough to test it out, so maybe a permanent base on the moon will be a long-duration test bed that can enable us to go somewhere else and not kill people. Can you imagine if Apollo 11 had crashed and the astronauts had been killed? Would Apollo 12 gone? Not in this day and age, that's for sure. So the other thing are these resources. And utilizing the resources of the moon, not only to live on the moon, explore the moon, but to explore the solar system. This is becoming a reality because we're learning more about the moon because of all these missions. You know, we know that there are resources there, but there's a distinction between resources and reserves. Reserves, we actually know how much. We've quantified it. So we need to get to the surface to try and figure out everything we see from orbit. Is it just a surface layer, or does it extend down? How extensive are they? We have no idea. So, ISRU is going to be the game changer. Okay, we don't have to take everything with us from this planet. We know that the resources are there. We can even start to make, if there's enough of it, make rocket fuel. We can set up cislunar refueling depots in orbit around the moon. So you launch from this planet, you refuel, you go to Mars with a full tank. You use lunar water to fill your radiation protection shield so you don't have to launch it from this planet. Starts to cut down on the cost so we don't just send humans to Mars, hopefully not kill them, flags and footprints, bring them back after 2 days, another 6 months back. If they stay longer than that, then it's 500 days. Then the program's over. Well, we've been there, done that, don't need to go back again. So the other thing it does is it enables cooperation, and if you have this commercial participation, you start creating jobs. High-tech jobs. Small at first, but then it's going to grow over time as the international partners start to see, oh, this is real. This is actually going to happen. So the moon can enable long-term sustainable lunar and solar system exploration. But this is the reason here, this gravity well is the reason why we're not going to the moon. The moon has a gravity well. This is why we're going to an asteroid. So the asteroid retrieval mission is we're going to robotically go to a rubbly asteroid, bring a 1 meter diameter boulder back, and put it in orbit around the moon, and send humans to explore it. How is that going to get us to Mars? I haven't quite figured that one out yet. Nobody. So the international partners all want to go to the moon. There was a big conference earlier this week in Moscow with the European Space Agency and Russia in very, very tight collaboration about getting back to the moon. And ESA has been told to minimize their collaboration with NASA because NASA's not going to the moon. So NASA has this resource Prospector mission, which is hanging by a thread, and it's to go and explore the North Pole and find just how deep those deposits are. Russia has 4 missions underway right now to go do this more extensive exploration of the poles. So where would we go? I point out just one example here of Peru Crater. You don't want to go down a crater wall, but Peru is half in shadow and half in sunlight. So you land over here on the relatively flat surface and then go explore your permanently shadowed region to see what Peru can do. So our mindset then is that, well, NASA's budget is a drain, it's taxpayers' money. It should be viewed as an investment in the future, an investment in jobs, an investment in technology that is going to benefit everyone. I mentioned osteoporosis. Aging is another one. You age much quicker when you're in a high radiation environment. How do you prevent that? Maybe people will start believing me if we could do that when I tell them I'm 45. So, hey, steady. All right? So, rather than, we build our infrastructure at a rate that depends on the budget. We don't have, we're going to be at Mars by 2030. Because that sets you up for failure. So you don't do that. You say, well, the next step to getting there is we have to achieve this. We've achieved this technology breakthrough. All right, now the next thing is this, next thing is this, next thing is this. So there's no bait and switch every time there's a new president come in. Oh, that's a Republican thing. I'm not going to do that. Forget about it. What's best for the country? So be goal-oriented rather than time-oriented. So the been there, done that negativity is actually an advantage for the moon. We've learned so much, I've just scraped the surface, about the moon and how it can enable technology, how it can enable exploration, and how it can enable science. So for science, it preserves an awful lot of things that have been completely obliterated on this planet. It tells us an awful lot about what has gone on in the early solar system. Apollo samples are the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, there's very strict rules about analyzing those samples. You have to apply to a committee. I used to chair that committee, so I know how strict it is. And sometimes I get upset at it. But when they get below 50% of the original mass of that sample, it doesn't go out. You can't get any more unless it is really, really well justified. So we still have there's 4 samples from Apollo that still haven't been opened. They were special samples taken under extreme cold and in the shadow and in vacuum. There's still exciting stuff to be learned from from the sample collection. So from our scientific research, we know that there are resources there. What we need to know next is, are they reserves? But what we do know is that they have the potential to enable not only human exploration beyond low Earth orbit and onto Mars, but also to bring that moon into our economic sphere of influence so that we can create high-tech jobs. We can lead the world beyond the moon. Political will comes into it quite a bit. So the moon can be the gateway to the solar system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clive and Beth. We're out of time for a Q&A, but I think hopefully they'll stick stick around for a few minutes if you'd like to join us. And just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Alumni Association.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.